This is a composite sketch of the man believed to be involved in the unsolved murder of 13-year-old Tristan Brübach in Frankfurt, Germany, on March 26, 1998. Created from multiple witness accounts, it depicts a pale, thin man with greasy blonde hair tied in a ponytail and a distinct scar or deformity on his upper lip. To this day, August 2025, his identity remains unknown. If he is still alive, he would now be between 47 and 57 years old. His appearance may have changed, but his secret has not. He is still out there, free. If you have any information, please contact the German police. A 13-year-old boy, lured in broad daylight, murdered just steps from a busy Frankfurt train station, not in a forest, not in the dark, but inside a public tunnel, hidden in plain sight. No screams, no witnesses, no arrests. This is the haunting, unsolved murder of Tristan Brübach, one of Germany's most chilling mysteries. Tristan Brübach was born on October 3, 1984, in Höchst, a modest working-class neighborhood on the western edge of Frankfurt am Main. He was the only child of Iris and Bernd Brübach. His early years were quiet, uneventful, the kind of life where routines form safety nets and familiarity keeps the world from feeling too big. But then, tragedy came. In 1995, when Tristan was just 10 years old, his mother died by suicide. The weight of that loss was immense. It split the family down the middle. His father, now alone, grieving, struggling to cope, had no choice but to lean on Tristan's grandmother for help. He was described as shy but sharp, streetwise but gentle, curious about the world, especially about animals. He had a pet rabbit named Hoppelfried that he adored. He could spend hours observing it. He began smoking cigarettes, maybe to appear older, maybe to connect with kids his age who seemed less weighed down. But that backfired. Older teens started bullying him, even robbing him. He wasn't protected, not really. His father worked long hours at Frankfurt Main Station. His grandmother, though caring, was elderly and couldn't keep up. So Tristan drifted, a familiar figure on the buses and streets of Höchst. He'd strike up conversations with strangers, often adults, dog walkers, and talk about their pets, about animals, about nothing at all. His life was stitched together with small routines, bus routes, alleyways, walking paths. He knew them well. He relied on them. But there were warning signs too, subtle ones. A boy who burned himself with cigarette smoke, who spent too much time alone, who slipped between the cracks. But nothing concrete, nothing that screamed danger, just sadness, and a life that already seemed far too heavy for someone so young. Then came that final ordinary morning, Thursday, March 26, 1998, the last day of school before the Easter break. It should have been unremarkable. That morning, Tristan phoned his father and complained of back pain. It wasn't dramatic, just enough to get permission to leave school early. At 1:30 p.m., he walked out the school doors for the last time. Surveillance footage captured him boarding a bus to Höchst station, as he often did. He sat in his usual spot, all the way in the back, seen by a friend, by a classmate, by the cold, indifferent lens of CCTV. The world moved around him like any other day. At around 3:20 p.m., a woman walking her dog spotted Tristan on a bench at Bruno Ash Park near the train station. He looked relaxed, maybe even happy. He was smoking a cigarette, chatting politely. He petted her dog. They exchanged a few words. He smiled. He seemed at ease, not afraid, not anxious. As she walked away, the woman glanced back and noticed two men sitting near him on the bench. She didn't think much of it at the time, just an odd little detail that would later come back to haunt investigators, vague, unexplained, and impossible to verify. What happened in the minutes that followed would become one of Germany's most disturbing and enduring mysteries. But in that moment, everything still looked normal. A boy, a cigarette, a dog, two strangers on a bench. Just another Thursday afternoon in a sleepy Frankfurt suburb. But it wasn't. It was the last time anyone would ever see Tristan Brübach alive. Within minutes of that brief encounter on the park bench, Tristan began walking west, toward something no one could see coming. He headed in the direction of the southern entrance of the Liderbach Tunnel, a narrow, unlit pedestrian underpass hidden beneath the train tracks. It wasn't the kind of place you'd stumble upon by accident. Tucked away, partially concealed by overgrowth and shadow, it was a spot known mostly to locals, especially to kids who used it as a shortcut or a place to hang out away from adult eyes. Sometime between 3:20 and 3:30 p.m., investigators believe Tristan entered the tunnel or met someone just outside it. Theories vary, but the working assumption is chilling, that he may have known his killer, that this meeting in some form was intentional, that he walked into that tunnel not under threat, but by choice. Still, police have never been able to confirm how well he knew the person he encountered, or if it was the first time they met. Not long after, at the northern end of the tunnel, 3 teenagers approached, planning to pass through as a shortcut. But what they saw stopped them cold. Inside, dimly lit by daylight filtering in from both ends, a man was hunched over something, positioned on a low concrete platform in the center of the tunnel. They couldn't make out exactly what they were looking at, just the outline of a man bending over a still form. A flash of alarm, a gut feeling, and they turned around. They never went inside. Only later did they realize what they'd almost walked into. Around 4 p.m., 2 much younger children, primary school-aged, did enter the tunnel and made a horrific discovery. What they saw was beyond comprehension. The body of a boy, lifeless, unmoving, on that same concrete base. They ran for help. First to their teacher, who returned with them, confirmed what they had seen, and contacted police. The emergency call was logged at 5:08 p.m., but official records indicate the body was likely found closer to 4 p.m. When officers arrived, experienced professionals, men and women who had seen every kind of violence a city can produce, they were shaken. Even hardened detectives described the scene as one of the most disturbing they had ever witnessed in post-war Germany. There was no doubt. This was not just a murder. This was something much darker, something intentional, ritualistic, and profoundly cruel. Police reconstruction paints a sequence so disturbing, so coldly deliberate, it has haunted investigators ever since. It likely began near the southern entrance of the tunnel. Tristan was probably struck hard in the face, a single, forceful blow. Disoriented or falling, he was then strangled until unconscious. A struggle almost certainly took place. One of his shoes came off in the process. That same shoe would later be found, carefully placed on top his body. Once incapacitated, he was dragged deeper into the darkness, out of sight from the street above, and laid on a low concrete platform next to the narrow water channel that ran through the tunnel. There, the killer acted with terrifying precision. Tristan's throat was slit from ear to ear, the wound so deep it severed his spinal cord. This was determined to be the official cause of death, although trauma had begun earlier with the blunt force assault and strangulation. But it didn't end there. What came next was savage and deliberate. The attacker stabbed him repeatedly, then let him bleed out. Afterward, he mutilated the body, removing both testicles and sections of skin and muscle from Tristan's buttocks and thighs. Those body parts were never found. Not at the scene. Not anywhere. It's a detail that still freezes the blood of anyone who hears it. According to forensic experts, the entire sequence, from initial blow to the final posing of the body, may have taken just 15 to 20 minutes. But the killer didn't rush. He stayed. He arranged. He posed the body. He pulled Tristan's trousers back up, covered his face with his own jacket, and placed his missing shoe, the one dislodged in the struggle, on his hip, alongside the other. His appearance was almost peaceful, as though he had simply fallen asleep in the cold tunnel. Nearby, at the southern entrance, investigators found the contents of Tristan's backpack spilled out. School books, notebooks, loose items, scattered deliberately. But the backpack itself was missing. On one of the textbooks, police recovered bloodied fingerprints and palm prints. Another notebook had been used to wipe a serrated knife, its pages smeared in blood. It's been theorized, though never confirmed, that the killer may have used the backpack to carry away the removed body parts. It would explain both the missing bag and the absence of remains, but without more evidence, it's a hypothesis investigators can't fully prove. A year later, in March 1999, the backpack reappeared. It was discovered in a forest near Niedernhausen, some 25 kilometers away. Inside was a Czech language road atlas, a strange and inexplicable detail since Tristan didn't speak Czech and the atlas didn't belong to him. The discovery widened the investigation into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, but led nowhere. No one came forward. No new suspects emerged. The bloody fingerprint found in the school book became the case's most vital forensic clue. But even that has yielded nothing. Despite one of Germany's largest ever fingerprint campaigns, the print has never been matched. By 2014, an astonishing 98.65% of all males aged 15–45 in Höchst and 92.95% in Unterliederbach had voluntarily submitted fingerprints. And still, no match. This wasn't just a violent killing, it was a performance, methodical, ritualistic, unflinchingly cold. To kill like that, to mutilate, to pose, to collect trophies, and then vanish, suggests someone who wasn't acting on impulse. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He took his time. He cleaned up, wiped a blade, and maybe even watched the scene from a distance afterward. He knew what he was doing. Some believe he had anatomical knowledge, maybe a butcher, maybe a hunter, maybe worse. But even if not trained, he understood how to inflict maximum damage and how to avoid leaving traceable evidence. And then he disappeared. A boy is found mutilated in daylight, in public, in a tunnel children used to walk home from school. And the killer just fades into the crowd. The manhunt that followed became one of the most extensive and intense criminal investigations in modern German history. Police didn't hesitate. They immediately mobilized over 150 detectives, drawing in not only local and federal authorities, but also Europol and even the FBI. The scope of the operation was enormous. This wasn't just a local tragedy anymore. It had become a national obsession. Over time, more than 23,000 tips were processed. Every one of them was followed up. Dead ends, hopeful leads, false alarms, each possibility was checked. Investigators combed through over 400 prisons and correctional facilities across Germany, searching for any individual who resembled the man in the composite sketch, but nothing matched. By 2008, nearly 80 correctional institutions had responded to formal inquiries. Still, no suspect emerged. In 2002, police escalated efforts again, launching what would become one of the largest fingerprint collection efforts in German criminal history. They asked all males aged 15 to 45 in Höchst Unterliederbach and even male commuters using Höchst Station to voluntarily submit their fingerprints. By 2014, 98.65% of eligible males in Höchst and 92.95% in Unterliederbach had complied. Yet the one bloody fingerprint, left behind on a schoolbook from Tristan's dumped backpack, still has no match. And that backpack? It added another layer of mystery. It was found 1 year later, in March 1999, abandoned in a forest near Niedernhausen, 25 kilometers from the crime scene. Inside was something that didn't belong, a Czech language road atlas. A strange item. Tristan didn't speak Czech. He didn't own the atlas. Its presence raised new questions and briefly shifted the investigation's focus toward Czech and Slovak territories. But once again, the trail went cold. In the years that followed, false leads multiplied. One woman from the U.S. falsely accused her ex-husband. She later recanted and was fined for making false statements. Every few years, a new theory surfaced, only to collapse under scrutiny. One lead in 2016 drew national attention, the potential link to Manfred Seal, a known serial killer who had dismembered victims in and around Frankfurt. Seal was meticulous, brutal, and had even stored human remains in barrels. But the theory didn't hold. The victim profile didn't match, forensic evidence was lacking, and ultimately, he was ruled out. From witness testimonies and composite drawings, police assembled a profile of their prime suspect, a man who had been seen near the tunnel, both before and after the murder. He was described as about 175 centimeters tall, roughly 5'7", between 20 and 30 years old in 1998, pale, thin, with a slender build, greasy dark blonde hair worn in a ponytail or braid, a visible scar on the upper lip, or possibly a cleft palate, disheveled, possibly homeless, transient, or working informally in the area. He wasn't just seen once. A woman walking her dog around 3:50 p.m., shortly after the murder, reported seeing a man fitting that description emerge from the bushes near the tunnel. She didn't know it at the time, but she might have passed the killer on her way home. Even more haunting, Tristan's private tutor later came forward to say she had seen the boy talking to a man who matched this same description on multiple occasions in the days leading up to his death. One especially strange encounter occurred sometime in 1998 when a man, matching the sketch almost perfectly, walked into a law firm and said, "I've only just been released from prison, and I've already screwed up." He was told the firm didn't handle criminal cases and was sent away. He was never seen again. What sets this case apart, what truly unsettles veteran detectives, is the chilling combination of precision and sadism. This wasn't an impulsive killing. It was meticulous. The killer chose a secluded tunnel, timed his movements with care. He brought tools. He wiped the knife. He transported the backpack. He posed the body deliberately and removed anatomical parts with almost surgical accuracy. The wounds weren't clumsy or frenzied. They were controlled, even clinical. It's why investigators have long theorized that the murderer may have had experience with butchery, pathology, or medical procedures, or at least some familiarity with anatomy. Still, that remains speculative. There's also the question of motive. The mutilations, particularly the removal of genitalia and muscle tissue, raise disturbing possibilities. A sexual component, possibly a trophy collection, or even cannibalistic intent. Nothing definitive has been proven, but police haven't ruled it out. Then there's the psychology. This person was comfortable enough in their own skin to appear ordinary, to walk through a neighborhood, maybe even speak to the boy more than once, maybe gain his trust. That points to someone who could blend in, perhaps even someone who had been living or working in Höchst at the time. Someone who may have disappeared right after the crime or simply hid in plain sight. Despite the scale of the operation, the database searches, the composites, the witnesses, the fingerprints, he got away. And the worst part is, based on what we know of this kind of offender, it's highly unlikely he only did it once. Shortly after Tristan's funeral on April 7, 1998, someone called the police from a payphone at Höchst Station, claiming to be the killer. He described himself as 180 centimeters tall with long black hair, contradicting the composite profile. When police arrived, the caller had vanished. No trace was ever found. In October 1999, an unknown person attempted to dig up Tristan's grave in Höchst Cemetery, penetrating 1.2 meters but not opening the coffin. The act was possibly by a disturbed individual or even the perpetrator, but investigators judged it unrelated to the original crime. But why does the case remain unsolved? Despite exhaustive fingerprint collection, no match was identified. Composite images and descriptions failed to lead to any suspect. Evidence like DNA and the Czech Atlas yielded no identifiable trail. The psychological profile points to a methodical, organized killer, still at large. Even today, over 20 years later, the case remains open. A €20,000 reward for evidence leading to conviction is still offered by authorities, and amateur investigators, podcasts, and true crime writers continue to revisit the evidence in hopes of a break. Today, the man responsible of Tristan's murder known only as the Ponytail Man, would be somewhere between 47 and 57 years old. His blonde hair might now be graying, his features softened by age. Perhaps he looks entirely ordinary, blending effortlessly into a crowd, unremarkable in every way, except for the hidden memories of one violent afternoon in 1998.